James Lynch here, and Ben from We Beat the Spread on Twitter, talking to you about UFC Vegas 55, which goes down this Saturday. A pretty tricky card here from Vegas at the Apex. Ben, first off, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah, really interesting card on Saturday. The UFC is rolling as they usually do every weekend. We're going to start first on the main card. We've got Eric Anders taking on Jung Young Park. Park about a 2-1 favorite on most books. Who you liking here as far as that middleweight matchup?
Honestly, just for the line, I do like Anders as the underdog in this one, with the full camp and everything. I believe he does have the more power here on the feet. Park probably has more output. So I think the longer this goes, the least that favors Park. But I do like Anders here to maybe get it done early. Could get him by decision just based off of his power. But I do like him to maybe put the lights out here on Park.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Anders looking to obviously bounce back from his last fight. I agree. I think the line's off a little bit here. I haven't really been that impressed with Park. I know Anders got a full 8 weeks at Fight Ready this time around, so that should definitely help him going into the fight. Definitely see some value there on Anders. Let's keep it moving here. We've got a women's strawweight fight, Polyana Vieira and Tabitha Ricci. And on most books right now, you're seeing Ricci as the favorite. Who you liking here in this strawweight battle?
I do like Ricci. I like the wrestling edge she has. I think she should be able to put it away. I didn't tape this one too much, but as a short underdog, I think she should be able to get it to the ground and use her wrestling to take care of it.
I'm actually going the other way here. I think there's value here on Vieira. She's a little bit bigger in this fight, as you can see. She's 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. She's going to be a lot bigger than her opponent. I also don't think Ricci's fought the level of competition that Vieira has, but we'll see on Saturday. Either way, I don't think we'll see a finish here. I could see this fight going the full 3 rounds, so maybe you look at it that fight goes the distance prop in the matchup.
I agree there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, with the women's fights, you never really know. So there we go. Okay, next fight, Chito and Njokuani taking on Dusko Todorovich. And again, same deal. You're seeing Chidi and Njokuani as the favorite at -190, almost a 2-1 favorite. The comeback on Dusko +160. Who you liking here in this middleweight matchup?
I do like Chidi a lot here. I like that. I don't love the juice, just taking him straight up, but I do think taking him inside the distance could be a good spot. You can get it actually even money on a few books I've looked at, which is a great odds in my opinion. His last 3 fights, absolute bangers, all 3 knockouts. The power in his hands, I think, is really going to match up well against Todorovich. I think this is going to look a lot like his fight against Soriano, where he took that knockout loss just because of his head movement. He doesn't move his head a lot. They will be trading in this fight, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Chito get caught, but I do think that he can catch him early, and I like the line on it. If it was anything juiced, I wouldn't even look at this one. But the fact that you can take him to get that knockout or, potentially submission, but I think a knockout for +100 is good value in my eyes, so I do like him to take care of this one inside the distance.
Yeah, I hate to bore our audience here, but I completely agree. In fact, I like Njokuani by knockout in this fight. I don't think you'll see him submit Todorovich. And that was the fight I was kind of thinking of, was the Puna Soriano fight where Dusko got knocked out in that one.
Yep.
We saw Chidi knock out a pretty durable guy, Marc-Andre Barrio, in his last fight very quickly. And I think we could see something similar here. Chidi's a guy that, he should have never had to go in Contender Series. He was, he fought for years in Bellator. He was a guy that was very seasoned when he came in the UFC. So despite the fact that he's only had, 2 UFC fights, in my opinion, he's a lot more seasoned than Dusko is in this fight. I think he goes out there and wins by knockout, and I'm with you there. I really like him in this fight. So I think Chidi goes out there and lives up to his nickname, Bang Bang. All right, next fight, co-main event, Santiago Ponzinibio, Michel Pereira. I've seen the line on this kind of go a bit back and forth, but right now we're seeing Pereira as the favorite on most books right now. Who you leaning here in this welterweight fight?
Oh, man, this one makes me sad because anytime I think of Ponzinibio, I think of that staph infection he got. He had to take those few years off. We all probably thought he was about to fight for a title at that point. He was on a 7-fight win streak before he went out in 2018 with that staph. He came back. He went 1-2 over his fights. He didn't necessarily look the same, but I think we're getting back to kind of the older Ponzinibio we saw before he was out for those few years. So I do think he can take care of this one. He has really good movement on the feet. He has excellent pacing, which is something we've seen Pereira struggle with before. We've kind of seen him come out a little too fast, and he's a really crazy fighter. He's really good for the fans because, he's kind of crazy sometimes. He throws really unorthodox stuff. But I think that Ponzinibio can kind of keep the pace where he wants it, and he can keep the momentum in his favor. And I actually think that he might win this one by decision. Even though they both throw a lot, this one will probably stay on the feet. I do think that he can kind of edge him out and outpoint him actually onto a decision win here.
So I look at this fight a little bit differently. Pereira to me I think, is the better fighter at their stage in the career. I think you referenced the old Ponzinibio, the one that beat Neil Magny quite decisively. I don't know if that Ponzinibio exists anymore. I think you mentioned the injuries, the layoffs, the age. That's very concerning for me. And you got a guy in Pereira who I think when he's on, he can do very well. That's the question though. Is he going to be on in this fight? You know, he's had some blips, some fight IQ issues. Tristan Connolly, an easy fight that he should have won. He didn't win that fight. Diego Sanchez, he has the illegal knee. Like he goofs around too much in the cage, and that's something that kind of worries me a bit. When he's focused and he's on, he looks very good, but when he's not, it's a little bit of a concern. I think from a betting perspective, this is a dog or pass situation. I would look at Ponzinibio and see if he gets anything close to plus money, although minus 105 is the case. But I'm kind of banking that Pereira will be on, and I think he can get it done. I think he's going to be a little bit faster in this fight, so I'm actually going to go the other way here. But really tricky fight in my opinion. But like I said, from a betting perspective, I go dog or pass if I was going to bet this, because I just don't see any value here on Pereira because he's too unpredictable in my opinion. So
yeah, it's a tough fight because I mean the odds are so even that the books basically don't even know either. You know, they don't know what we're gonna see. So with Pereira, you kind of never know. But yeah.
All right, main event: Holm, Ketlin Vieira. Holm, the favorite on most books right now, about a 2-1, almost 3-1 favorite, which I get it. We'll talk about why in a second here. Who are you leaning in this one? This is a really pivotal fight for both fighters in the 135-pound weight class.
Yeah, this is a tricky fight because I mean the odds don't necessarily make me love a pick on Holm, even though I think most people, I mean, I think I've seen like 85% consensus on her. So obviously a lot of people think Holm's going to win this. I mean, she's fought literally the best of the best. Amanda Nunes, Cyborg, Valentina Shevchenko, who was actually, she was a minus 200 favorite against Shevchenko, even though she lost. She fought around Rousey. She's literally fought everyone you can fight. Vieira's going to show her nothing that she hasn't seen before. Nothing that she hasn't dealt with before. So I do think Holm will win, but I just can't bet on a minus 200 person outright, especially in a main event, you know, women's strawweight. Vieira's hungry. She could pull off the upset, but I think if you're going to do anything here, I'd maybe put Holm in a parlay because there's a lot of juiced fights on this card. Like we said earlier off the bat, that this is a tough card to bet on because there is a lot of juice. I think if anything, I'd look at a parlay here, but I do think Holm wins it along with most people. So.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think Holm only loses to the best. And you referenced that Valentina fight. That was before we knew about Valentina, really. I mean, I think she was only a couple fights removed from fighting, in the regional scene. So, looking back now, obviously you see the level of opposition she's fought. Holm is, like I said, she's only losing to the best. Nunes, Cyborg. I mean, the list goes down. Vieira, she's had some weird losses, right? She lost to Irene Aldana. She was knocked out in that fight. And then we're just 2 fights removed from her absolutely terrible fight against Yana Kunitskaya. Like, I think people forget that. You remember the Miesha Tate win where she looked great, but the fight before that, I mean, that's a fight she should have won. So I don't think Vieira is as good as people thought she was. I mean, there was talk, had she beat Aldana back then, she was going to fight for the title. That never ended up happening. Good opportunity here. The only thing that concerns me in this fight is the layoff. Holm hasn't fought since October of 2020. She's 40 years old. At some point, that's going to slow down in terms of her output. Obviously, she comes from a boxing background. She was a professional boxer for a long time. Holm should win this, but I'm with you there. Like, there's not a ton of value. One thing I would look at in this fight, and might be a little risky, but Holm by decision is plus money. I don't know if she finishes Vieira in this fight. I know Vieira has been finished, like I said, from Aldana and a few other fighters, and I do realize it's 5 rounds, but I think with Holm, she just got to get the win. I don't know if we're going to see her be that reckless. We haven't seen her get a finish in quite some time. I might look at that Holm by decision, but I think the safer bet is what you recommended. Take Holm, put her in a parlay. I think her and Chito and Njokuani is pretty good value, especially
that'd be a great parlay.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of there as far as the pick. But I'm going to go Holm, but just another kind of weird fight here again because you got Holm, who's a lot better.
Yeah, you also mentioned that knockout loss to Aldana. I mean, that's who Holm is just coming off maybe one of her best career victories against. I mean, she had 187 strikes, 5 takedowns. I mean, she looked incredible in that one. And like you said, for her age, for her being, I think she'd be 39 during that fight, she looked pretty good for a 39-year-old landing those 5 takedowns and almost 200 strikes. And that's the same person who who knocked out Vieira. So interesting take there. I don't know how much people read into, similar opponent matchups, but if you're looking at that, one person got knocked out. So, I mean, yeah.
For sure. Is there anything else on this card that interests you? Again, tricky card here, kind of looking at the odds. We've got that weird heavyweight fight with Jailton Almeida moving up. We've got Chase Hooper returning. Anything else on here kind of catch your eye, or can we close it out, as they say?
Chase Hooper returning definitely takes my eye, and I actually do like. I haven't seen a sub. I've been looking around. It's always tough. You're trying to catch the early lines. I haven't actually been able to find. I looked on FanDuel, a couple other places. I haven't found a sub line yet, but he is plus 150, plus 160 on the money line. I do like him at that line, although I'll probably be taking him by submission just for the value. I don't know what the line will be, maybe plus 300, plus 400, but he's a sneaky guy. And, you know, I really like his submission against Peter Barrett. You know, he's really creative on the ground. And Kolaris, he's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him not taking this fight to the ground. I expect it to be on the ground a lot. There are going to be a lot of scrambles, that kind of thing. So I like him to kind of sneak in one of those submissions. I think it was a heel hook against Barrett, if I'm remembering correctly. And that was just out of thin air, basically. And we saw him looking for it basically the whole fight. So maybe he was, you know, game planning for that. Maybe he has a similar game plan coming to this one where he's just going to be, you know, spamming that one submission. But I don't know what the line will be, but I do like him to get this one by submission.
Yeah, that was the fight I was looking at too, because look at the size difference here. 6'1" to 5'8", 75.5-inch reach compared to 69. So Hooper's going to be bigger, and he's 22. I think people forget, you know, yeah, he hasn't been that impressive, but he's kind of learning on the job here. So I think that time off, the fact that he's been very patient with his career, we could see an even better Chase Hooper. And you mentioned it there, the Peter Barrett fight, he was losing that fight and he came back and got a submission win. So, you know, he always has that in his back pocket.
Sorry, I was just going to say that length that you mentioned too is going to be something that's going to be important in this fight, because he had the same thing against Peter Barrett, and that's what he used to his advantage. So he's a smart fighter. Like you said, he's super young, so he's still learning, but he fights really smart because he used that length to get that submission. You know, if he was the smaller fighter, he might not have been able to pull that off. So he definitely uses that length to his advantage, and that's something he could do in this fight as well.
All right, so there you have it. UFC Vegas 55 is in the books. We want to hear your picks. Let us know in the comments who you guys are picking for this weekend's card. Again, a bit of a trickier one from an odds perspective. Enjoy the fights this weekend. We'll see you next time, and thanks so much for watching.